Hey there friends, it's Nick. This is storyhacker.tv and quick video this time because I am off to get my hair cut. As you can see, my hair is a mess. Now it got me thinking about where the trip to the barber sits in the kind of story equation, and let me tell you what I mean. If you're in business, you've got clients, you've got customers, and they are telling themselves, I think, two stories. One is the story they tell themselves going into the transaction, so going in, and then the other one is the story they tell themselves after. And each of those stories can be good or bad, right? So, to take this example, I'm not a big fan of going to the barbers. I only go when it gets to the point where I can't just sort of jump out of the shower, towel my hair, make it look vaguely reasonable, and get on with life. So this has been building up for a while, obviously, and so I'm not looking forward to it. So I'm telling myself a kind of a negative story in front of this transaction. But the flip side, the good side is I won't have to do that again for 2 or 3 months, and now I can just roll out of bed and ruffle my hand through my hair and get on with life, get on with my day. So that is a bad good story, if you see what I mean. And the opposite would be something like I don't know, something like Pringles. Okay, Pringles, you're telling yourself a good story on the way in because you want that taste, that crunch, that saltiness, whatever it is, whatever those evil geniuses designed into Pringles to make them almost irresistible. You got good, and then the flip side of that is, particularly if you're someone like me, is that you've eaten too many of them probably, and you're telling yourself a bad story. It's a story of sort of pain and guilt and regret or whatever. And of course, if you're trying to build the best kind of business, I guess what you're looking for is a positive equation on both sides. So good. And there are relatively few examples of that, I think, but the few that come to mind are products or brands or services that are really successful. If you think about something like the iPhone, for example, which year on year has hugely high customer satisfaction scores, and in effect they keep selling them to the same people and growing their kind of market. I mean, obviously it's slowed down because because everyone's got a smartphone, but that even though that's a really expensive product, the story is good going in. It's something that people want to do, then it's good coming out because it's something that they're glad they've done, and that is hugely powerful, isn't it? And I guess what we're talking about is then that this is kind of an equation, and it's really worth you looking at your business, looking at your offers, and looking at where the story's good and where it's not so good. And if it's if you're a dentist, then pretty much you've got a bad story on the front and hopefully a good story on the back, and there's not much you can do about that. But I think one of the ways we can think about using stories is to try and mitigate the the bad stuff. And maybe if the thing is irredeemably bad on one side, so for example, someone's coming to a garage because their car's broken down. Well, there's really no way that you can make that a good story for them. But if you can bank up all the good stuff on the other side, it helps with that equation, that kind of calculation, doesn't it? So, for example, if you're building up trust, yesterday in the podcast I talked about the value of long-term, about being a giver long-term, is a strategy that really works in the long term. So you can use stories to kind of mitigate these bad things, I think, and it's a really helpful way, because one of the questions I get asked is, how practically can I use stories to help my business? And I think thinking about your product or your service in this story in, story out kind of way is really helpful, because it allows us to kind of break things down and see where the work needs to be done. Okay, that's Nick. This is Nick Warren. It's storyhacker.tv. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in another video.